This is Barry Witherden, and I'm very pleased to welcome a guest this morning from Mind in Taunton and West Somerset, and that's David Topham. Hi, Dave.
Good morning, Barry.
And you've been here before, about 3 years ago, I think it was.
Well, it was a while ago. We were trying to remember outside, weren't we?
The old studio, yeah. Project then called Go Wild, Stay Well, which is no longer around in that particular form, is it? But we're going to be talking about what there is later. Could you tell listeners a bit about Mind and just broadly what they do now?
Yes, indeed. Mind in Taunton and West Somerset is the local Mind group. We affiliate to the national body. Your listeners may already be familiar with that. But as a local group, we are completely independent and run by an independent voluntary management committee, and are reliant solely on the ability of the management committee and the staff and our supporters to raise funds for our projects and to continue on. Our main projects, though, which hopefully many of your listeners will be familiar with, are Mindline. So we run Mindline in Somerset. We've got a whole group of people who answer the phones to people who need someone to talk to in the evening from 8 to 11 most nights. That's both in Somerset and in Devon now. And also we partner with Bristol Mind to run something called Mindline Trans Plus, which is a helpline for people who identify as transgender. Additionally, we've got projects such as Bridging the Gap, which is for council tenants. It's funded by the Council Housing Department to provide support for their tenants because they've identified that quite a number of the tenants in council stock suffer from poor mental health. So we're funded to support that. And then we've got peer support groups, which are voluntary led and voluntary run, where people can meet and just generally get together to support each other. And additionally, there's a whole plethora of other smaller projects. We've got such as the Such project, which is alternative therapies in hospitals. We've got a peer mentoring service, which provides volunteers for people who have been in trouble with the criminal justice system. And things that just come and go a bit. Later on, I'll be talking about a group called the Nature and Wellbeing Group, which is part of the ecotherapy program, or what's left of the ecotherapy program, which I used to run. And ecotherapy is about getting people outside to connect with nature and just generally improve well-being.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And so ecotherapy, what is that then?
Okay, so as I mentioned, I used to run the ecotherapy program, and you at the beginning introduced one of our projects, which was called Go Wild, Stay Well, which I used to manage. From 2010 to about 2015, we ran a program where we took people out onto nature reserves to do conservation work, to connect with nature and actually just get physically active. It was incredibly beneficial. We found that we were getting about a 45% improvement in confidence. That's an average improvement in confidence, and about a 35% average improvement in mood. So really beneficial, really hit the nail on the head, really very, very beneficial. For some people, life-changing, I would say. Unfortunately, one of the drawbacks of working in the voluntary sector is funding comes and funding goes, and trends change, which means that at the moment we're not able to get funding for that project, and it's looking unlikely in the near future that we will get funding. However, I also mentioned a project called Nature and Wellbeing. So one of the spin-offs of the Go Wild Stay project is the Quantock AONB have developed a project which actually just kind of goes out once a month now for people who have mental health issues. And we've been able to support that with a small grant from the Somerset Community Foundation to provide transport. So there's a group of people who are going out onto the Quantocks once a month with the Quantock Hills staff, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to increase that with another tie-up that we're working on with Somerset Wildlife Trust. So if people are interested in that group, they should contact me, Dave Topham at Mind, and you can do that by email or by telephone. I think Barry will give the details later on of how to contact Mind in general.
Also, maybe, but I heard one of my colleagues recently saying he didn't know what AONB is. It's Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty.
Oh, yes, that's right, acronyms.
Just in case anybody isn't aware of what that is, yeah. So we'll give those, as you say, we'll give those details. I mean, the Go Wild Stay Well project, it was kind of win situation all round, wasn't it? Because communities were getting kind of maintenance and repair work done, and that being enhanced. And of course, the actual participants were. There were all sorts of benefits when a kind of sort of re-socialisation in some cases, and feeling of self-esteem because they were doing something valuable, as well as the purely physical and your endorphins and all that sort of stuff, wasn't there?
I think it's interesting, to look at why it was so successful, and I think there's an increasing amount of scientific evidence to support that connecting with nature and getting physically active can really have a great benefit to to all of our mental health, and I think the New Economics Foundation did a really interesting piece of work a few years ago, where they identified 5 key elements to well-being, and that is just kind of well-being. Well, what's well-being? Well-being is about just being well in yourself, so mentally and physically, and how to sort of kind of get on to be able to live a full and sustained life. So, and the 5 ways to well-being that they identified, and the more I hear of this, the more I think actually it's a brilliant piece of work. The first is to connect. So as human beings, we're all social animals, so we need to connect with each other, to talk to each other, to meet up, and be very, very important. Secondly, is to be active. That's physically active. That doesn't have to mean sort of being really sporty and running marathons and everything. It's just being active. So that could be walking or swimming or whatever takes your fancy, really. And the third one is to take notice. Often in our busy lives, we're rushing around and we don't actually stop to actually just kind of notice that the seasons are changing, that things are sort of kind of changing, so just what's around us, what the colour of things are, what the hue of things are, or just the different sort of shades of light. And so taking notice helps us slow down and actually just really connect. The fourth one is learning. I think we're as an animal, or as a being, we're primed to learn and investigate and explore. So actually learning is a really important part of that. That might just be something like reading the paper, because actually you'll learn sort of kind of what's going on in the world and sort of that sort of thing. And finally, and one that kind of maybe is often not sort of thought about very much, is giving. And what do we mean by giving? Well, it might be financial giving, but actually it's a lot more than that. It could be your time as a volunteer, or just kind of thinking about other people around you, sort of the sort of thing of helping the little old lady across the road. Sort of it could be very, very small things, or it could be big things, but actually giving really helps. It helps us as individuals sort of really explore our humanity and what it is to sort of kind of cherish each other.
And affects your kind of sense of self-worth. I've done something useful, and because especially with something like depression, it's very difficult to kind of feel self-esteem and self-worth, isn't it? And you do something like that, and it helps you as well as the.
Well, absolutely. And if we go back to the Go Wild, Stay Well, I mean, and how that sort of works in that it connected people together in a group. Everyone was active. We were doing conservation work. We went for a little walk around the nature reserves. By actually physically taking part in conservation work, you were forced to engage with nature and take notice of it. Often we were learning new things, new skills, what was necessary to conserve things, and giving to the environment to preserve and enhance it, and so all of those were clearly there and present within the Go Wild Stay Well project. And I think that we can all do a little bit of that. While it's good to have projects like that kind of bring people together and make use of natural resources, I think as individuals we can do that ourselves by. It might just be going for a walk in the countryside, or being active. It might be for you, that might mean something else. It might be being part of a club and being sporty, or it might be going for a swim. So that all those things can have a real, very beneficial effect on individuals' well-being.
I mean, everybody's sort of stretched for resources these days, the voluntary sector and the state sector. But do we know if the NHS and GP surgeries are signed up to this sort of thing? Do we know if there are many surgeries that are kind of engaging with this kind of project?
I think one of the through my time at Mind, I've actually been out and spoken to quite a lot of doctors, and one of the issues for doctors is that they have a 10-minute period of consultation. So if they have somebody who comes along who is manifesting as depressed, they'll do an assessment. And that assessment will probably take the whole 10 minutes. And then there's kind of a plethora of different things that they could do in terms of they can signpost to sort of active lifestyles, workers or gyms or all sorts of different things. But actually, I think for the average family doctor, there are too many and it's too complicated for them, and actually they simply don't have the time to have that conversation, which is a really sad reflection on the NHS, I think, that actually doctors don't. And I have had doctors say to me, that's great that you're doing that, but I simply don't have time to make that referral. And it's a problem, one that we've not really been able to grasp. So me coming and speaking to you today, Barry, I think is just trying to get the message out that actually there are things that people can do for themselves. I mean, if someone is very, very depressed, they're probably not going to feel able on that day to get out and about. But there are phases where they won't be quite so depressed. And if we are all looking after our well-being in the times where we're not quite so down, we're not quite so low in spirit, then that will help us when we do get to the really low points, push through so that actually we don't get quite so low, and that actually generally our life will be in a better equilibrium.
We're talking to Dave Topham from Mind in Taunton, West Somerset, and we've been talking about ecotherapy and well-being generally, and we said earlier on that we give some contact details, so if you've got a pen and paper handy now, Mind in Taunton, West Somerset, there's a website, mindtws.org.uk, and there's a Facebook page, facebook.com/mindtws.org.uk. For those who do Twitter, it's twitter.com/mindintws. That's capital M and capital TWS, the rest in lowercase. And the phone number is 01823 276 892. That's 01823 276 892. That's for Mindline, and that runs. Is it six evenings a week? Is it?
So it's most evenings, and it's normally from 8 till 11. But you can phone that number 24 hours a day, and one of our partner agencies will do it. It
gets forwarded.
It is just if you feel the need to talk to someone to make some human connection, then it's there. It's a listening service to sort of kind of help people sort of through kind of whatever it is that's bothering them at the moment. And I think a lot of the helplines there's this feeling that you need to be really down or really depressed or really suicidal. But actually, it's about just kind of helping people along. So if you're sort of on your own, you don't have anyone to sound off to sort of kind of bounce ideas off. That's a good line to be phoning in the evening, and actually, as I say, you can phone 24 hours a day and you'll get through to one of our partner agencies, but actually our staff are staffing it from 8 till 11 most weeks.
And as you indicated, it's don't wait until you feel you're at absolute crisis point, and then nobody's going to say, we can't talk to you because you're not at crisis point.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's allowed to do a great job at people who are suicidal and are at crisis, but actually I think that often people feel the need. Well, there is a need generally sometimes, particularly if you're on your own, just to have to hear another voice, and it can be very effective at sort of kind of helping with that sort of side of things. And
the general phone line, which kind of, if people have got more general inquiries and so on, that's 01823 334 906. That's 334 906. So that if you ring that, you can get sort of kind of signposting advice and so on. And we've got a great many leaflets, including one on ecotherapy, which people can get hold of, or have a look at the website, either Mind in Taunton West Somerset's one or the National Mind one, and there's a lot of advice and information on there.
That's right. I mean, our website, the Mind TWS website, has a lot of information about our projects. There's information there about self-care, and on there you'll find more information about 5 ways to wellbeing and some suggestions about how you can enact some of those points. And then on the National Mind website, www.mind.org, you'll find a whole series of leaflets about making sense and understanding different conditions, and there are lots, which are very useful if you have been given a diagnosis or you want to know a little bit more about a subject. They're really, I recommend them highly. They're really well written leaflets, not only for the and they not only provide you with information, factual information about sort of conditions and what to do, but they also, at the back of all of the leaflets, there's some excellent contact details for different organisations which may specialise in whatever it is you're specifically looking at. A lot of those leaflets are also available at our office. If people want to pop in, they're welcome to pop in. We're on Station Road in Taunton, and we have a whole display of leaflets for those who don't have access to the internet. They're there in hard copy, and we're quite happy to give them out to people, or if they contact us, we can even send them to people, because actually we're very keen that if people feel the need and want to know more, that they have access to that information. One last thing, Barry, just one other way of contacting us if people want to is to email, and that's would be mail@mindtws.org.uk.
Mm-hmm. And it's 44 Station Road, isn't it? It's sort of central Taunton.
That's right. We're just opposite the swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people may know the building because the Citizens Advice Bureau used to be there a few years ago. We've taken it over from them, but a lot of people still identify it as the old Citizens Advice Bureau building. And
if any of our listeners would like to make a donation, one way of doing it is to go to www.justgiving.com/Mind TWS, and or just contact the organisation in the ways we've mentioned earlier. Supposing somebody does give us a nice big donation, what would you like to develop in the project? What would you like to be doing more of?
Okay, well, I mean, I think so a lot of the I'll talk a bit about what the donations that currently, because a lot of people raise quite a lot of money for us, and I think it's useful for people to know where that money's going to. So I mentioned earlier on our peer support groups. They're run by people who themselves have lived experience of mental health issues, and they're just a space for people to gather together. Those groups don't just happen on their own. They need they need a bit of support. There's a bit of channeling of people through to and that takes a little bit of money and time and effort, sort of. So some of the money goes towards that sort of thing. Also, one of the things that isn't much understood is that we don't have any resources whatsoever to answer the phone. Grants would often fund us to provide projects, but they're not particularly interested in the admin of the organisation. But answering the phone, of course, is really, really important, and we get a lot of calls from people who their mother, son, daughter, aunt is experiencing a mental health issue, and also from people who themselves are in crisis and want some direction. So in order for us to be able to do that, we need resources, and those resources are coming from the public donations. So a lot of different things there. And then finally, donations enable us to sort of explore and to develop new projects. So at the moment, there's a possible opportunity of getting some bicycles from a National Mind contact. So we're looking at putting together a project which may lease some bikes to people in need. And one of the things that donations do is it gives us the flexibility to be able to develop and to make use of these opportunities as and when they come forward.
And if people can only donate their time, not money, we do need more people on reception, in fact, don't we, at the moment? So,
we use, I mentioned earlier on, we've got over 60 volunteers. A lot of them work on Mindline for listening services. We also, as Barry says, need people to help us with answering the phone on reception. And we also need people to help out in a whole variety of other things. Some help out with fundraising. There's a whole load of volunteers with lived experience of mental health and the criminal justice system who help out with the project I mentioned earlier, peer mentoring. And then just our board is made up of volunteers, so the people who oversee the work and to sort of guide us. We also need volunteers with that. So we need volunteers who have a professional experience. We need volunteers who just want to help, and we need volunteers in all sorts of things. So if you're happy, if you've got some time and you'd like to help, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, well, thanks very much. We've pretty much run out of time. I just thought perhaps we should mention this one other project, which I don't think we mentioned, which is the suicide bereavement support service as well, isn't it? Which is housed with us. And
absolutely. And I think one of the problems one of the issues for me is that at Mind we have a lot of projects, and it's very easy to overlook one, and that's a very major one, really. Suicide's a massive issue, and there's an identification that people who are bereaved of suicide are more likely to be depressed, more likely to actually try to kill themselves as well. So we provide a support project to help.
Just quickly give the main contact details again, and then we'll have to finish our slot. But it's 01823 334 906 for sort of kind of general inquiries. The Mind line is 01823 276 892, and remind me the email address. It's mail@mind.
mail@mindtws.org.uk.
Okay.
And if people want to support us more, Barry, there's an event tomorrow coming up, a cycle burn in Taunton town centre up the High Street. If people want to go along and take part in that would be great to be supported. It connects up the two things we've been talking about, sort of about physical activity and well-being, but actually also in a way that can help us raise some money.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, well, thanks very much for coming in, Dave.
Thank you.